So, good afternoon, and I am here this afternoon with a Southampton Village resident, Maureen Flanagan, who is a teacher, and I think we can all take a reasonably good guess at her subject, looking at her very cool background. Maureen, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, that's the Earth, and one of the things that I teach is Earth science. Tell what you want to hear. What
well,
I'm doing.
so you're currently a teacher, and so how have the last couple of months happened for you?
Well, they've been very challenging, as you can imagine, as they are for everyone.
So the sequence of events here, because
well,
people who may not know.
We finished school, I think the date was about March 13th. I'm not positive. I know it was the Friday before St. Patrick's Day. And we had a little bit of preparation. People sort of, I think, thought that schools were going to be closing for 2 weeks at that point. So we had a little bit of preparation as far as distance learning, but not nearly the amount that you would need. We were not at all prepared for what distance learning would be and what it has become.
You mean the teachers were preparing, or the students as well?
Both. We made sure that all the kids were signed on to their various internet apps and things that they have. We use Zoom. We use a Remind app, which each teacher has a class that they can click out a message to everyone in that class simultaneously, or they can communicate individually with students.
Okay.
So we went over things like that, making sure that the kids all had those apps downloaded, knew how to work Zoom, knew how to work the other various technology things that the school uses on a regular basis. So that's how we prepared for it, but really only for a couple of days. It wasn't nearly enough.
Right. At that point, where were we in terms of numbers? Probably very low in terms of the numbers of deaths.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, I remember being concerned, thinking, gee, I'm in one of these vulnerable groups at my age. Should I be in a school? Because of course a school is like a petri dish for any kind of illness. Every surface is touched multiple times by multiple people. The hallways are crowded between classes. You're in close physical proximity with students when you're teaching them. So it was a little worrying, but I don't think anybody had any idea how awful it would really get to be.
So you closed thinking it might be 2 weeks. Was that during a vacation?
No, the vacation was actually the 3rd week. So for a while we thought I think it was the 3rd week. For a while it was thought that we would have those 2 weeks off and that they would cancel the spring break to make up for the lost time. Of course, that quickly went by the wayside, and then we waited sort of in 2-week increments for a month or so, a little more than a month, 6 weeks. And then finally, Governor Cuomo closed the schools until June. I think everybody knew it was coming, but you don't want to give up too soon, so.
In the very beginning, when it was first announced that you would close, how did your students react?
They were excited. You know, I think they thought, and I think for the first couple of weeks, actually, they considered themselves on vacation. Reality caught up soon after that, and they are all saying they wish they were back in school.
Really?
Which is, you know, I was thinking of these little bright spots that you have during this whole thing, and that might be one of them, that kids who sort of reflexively hate school, I hate reading, now maybe appreciate what they have.
Yeah, and who knows when it will really get back to anything resembling what it was. So Maureen, yeah. So
I
what
don't
is,
think it
I'm
will ever
sorry.
get back to, I'm sorry, but getting back to what it was, I don't think it will ever get back to what it was. I think that, yeah, I think there's going to be big changes in education as well as everything else after this is over.
How might you, how do you think it might change in a permanent way?
I think, well, for one thing, I think at least temporarily in September, I doubt very much that people, it will just, school will open and people will go back to school the way they always did. If there's still any trace of the virus, you just can't have a situation like a crowded school and,
Mhm.
you know, as I said, multiple surfaces touched by multiple people all day long. Um, I don't know. I mean, I certainly don't know what Southampton in particular has planned. I mean, I've heard sort of in general, possibly staggered schedules, morning school and afternoon school, every other day school kind of thing, with a lot of dependence on technology, you know,
Right.
distance teaching. Kids will be much more responsible for their own work and their own learning than they have been in the past. I believe. I don't know. We don't know yet. We have to see. Governor Cuomo says he's going to partner with the Gates Foundation. So I imagine there will be some technology involved.
Yes, there will. Are your kids, I would assume, fairly tech savvy?
Yes, as far as Snapchat and TikTok and those things go, they are very, and of course they're adaptable. They learn things really fast. But there was chaos at the beginning with all the different apps and sites and places that they had to go to, you know, links to videos that they had to watch, things like that. It was pretty chaotic. It has settled down a bit, but it's tough.
Yeah.
My grandson, as you know, is staying with me, and he goes to Belport. They have Google Classroom, which is a wonderful thing. Everything is in one place on that. I sort of wish
Okay.
we had that. We didn't.
Okay. Maureen, do you have students who don't have computers at home?
Yes, of course, which is another problem. Well, all our students have iPads, so they all have hardware, but they don't all have internet access. I mean, I think we all know that that's a great inequality, internet access in our country and our world. So there are kids, we have gotten hotspots, personal hotspots to a lot of kids who did not have internet access, but that can be spotty. And if you're in a house with 8 other people and everyone's on a device, that's pretty much slows down your hotspot. Yeah, it's this educationally as well as in so many other ways. This has really uncovered a lot of inequalities in
Yeah. So
society.
I would think that whatever inequalities do exist are just so magnified by this at-home business, right? Because what they have or what they don't have at home, the kind of parental supervision, even the food they are served. And do you have students who you worry about because they might be missing out on meals that they would have gotten at the school?
Absolutely. In the beginning, more so, the school has a pretty good food distribution program. Anyone in the beginning, it was kids who were getting free lunches could go and get lunch. Now it's up to pretty much anybody who feels threatened by a food shortage,
Okay.
can pick up breakfast and lunch at the schools. So
That's a
not
good,
too
that's very
worried.
good. I didn't know that.
Great. Yeah, it's great.
Maureen, what is there a typical day, or is every day different, or could you tell us about a day in the life of an earth science teacher during this time?
Well, every day is different. We have lots of Zoom meetings, faculty meetings, and different committees and stuff like that, you know, department meetings. And then a lot of time is spent hunting kids down. that have not responded. You know, you put up a week's worth of work and then don't hear from anybody, or don't hear from certain kids weeks at a time. Some, I believe there's a small number of kids at the high school anyway who have just not been heard from since school closed. Other kids are very sporadic. Some kids are working. So hunting kids down is a big part of it. And then helping kids, you have Zoom meetings one-on-one with kids who need a little extra help with something, which is what I do. I'm a special education teacher, and I teach in an earth science class and in algebra. So occasionally have like one-on-one Zooms with kids, texting back and forth with kids, giving them extra help, explaining something they don't understand, explaining an assignment that they don't quite get, giving them extra, you know, they'll ask for extra time. I couldn't do this, I had to work today. You know, we're being very lenient as far as holding people to their responsibilities. It's tough. Some kids are working or you know, babysitting for 3 siblings all day long while their parents are at work, or yeah, it's tough.
Do you feel that there are any kids who, by virtue of not being in school and maybe having a different kind of access to you, have become maybe more motivated to learn or helped in some way that they might not have had they been in school?
Yeah, it's possible. There are a few kids that I've met with one-on-one who have, you know, they're more willing to ask for help when it's just you and them on a Zoom, as opposed to raising their hand in class and asking for help in front of a room full of other kids. So yeah, it has some, the sort of one-on-one tutorials are great for some kids. They love it.
Right.
And they want someone to talk to sometimes too, you know, it's
right. Yeah. It's funny how there's a complete misperception that people who work from home perhaps aren't really working, and really nothing could be further from the truth, where in a case such as yours, Maureen, are there, now in your particular situation, I know that this was going to be your last year, or is going to be your last year. So, you know, what does that feel like for you?
Well, it's certainly not how I pictured my retirement year. It's a bit sad. I sort of feel retired almost already, although in no way am I. I certainly I'm working harder than I did on any average school day. It's sad. I miss my colleagues. I miss the kids. I would have liked to have had an end of year.
Right.
Yeah, it's tough.
Right. Has this brought you closer to any of your colleagues, or to, I mean, has it changed your feeling about what you've done for the last many years? Has it changed your perspective at all?
You know, the 2 teachers that I work with, an algebra teacher and an earth science teacher, are new young teachers, both in their like 2nd or 3rd year of teaching. And they're so great, both of them, and they work so hard. They're texting me sometimes at 11 o'clock at night. So-and-so didn't hand in his homework. What should I do? And it's very encouraging, and they're very tech savvy. And they relate really well with the kids. They're so much closer in age to the kids than I am. I'm optimistic about the future of education. It's going to be very different, but if most young new teachers are like the 2 that I work with, I'm not worried.
Well, I have to jump in there and say that you are such a beloved teacher at that school. Your kids love you. You are famously highly regarded and loved, Maureen. So I feel like you've given us a lot to think about, and a really good window into the life of someone who does something that is so important to all of us for a living. So I want to thank you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Penny. It was fun.
It was fun.